Hey, folks, I'm glad you joined us. This is Phantoms and Monsters Radio, where the veil lifts one story at a time. If you're new here, welcome to the presentation. Now, tonight, from deep woods in Mississippi to the shadowed slopes of New Hampshire's White Mountains, people continue to report encounters with strange beings that stalk, watch, and sometimes even follow them home. These are not fleeting campfire tales, but detailed experiences from credible witnesses, ordinary individuals suddenly thrust into extraordinary circumstances. From pale, crawler-like creatures crouched over carcasses to towering tall figures that leave behind only stench and fear, the accounts echo a disturbing pattern. Something unknown is out there, and it's aware of us. So tonight, we'll explore these chilling testimonies and consider the questions. Our question, what happens when the unknown takes an interest in you? So let's begin. Now, this first count, driving home near midnight, a Mississippi man nearly struck a pale, hairless creature crouched over a mutilated carcass with neon green eyes locked on him. The being disappeared into the woods, yet it still stalks his home from the shadows. So the witness tells me, I live in a very rural town in Mississippi where the majority of everything is forest or farms. My home is deep in the woodland area. It's almost like something out of a horror movie. The old creepy house in the middle of the woods, yep, that's my place. Now, back when I first moved here, everything was normal. It was a quiet, peaceful house in the woods with the closest neighbors about 10 minutes down the road. Nothing out of the ordinary or weird until one night. Now, I was driving home from work, and since it was nearly midnight, it was almost pitch black. I was tired of driving and finally ready to get home to sleep. I let out a hearty yawn, closed my eyes for a split second, and that was all it took for me to almost hit something. Not even 10 feet in front of me sat this hairless man-dog-looking creature. The thing, bloody and pale, hovering over the mutilated corpse of some animal. I hope it was an animal, at very least. But the thing slowly looked up at me, staring directly into my face with its beady neon green eyes, shining as the headlights reflected off of them. Its jaw looked like it was almost unhinged, flaunting its numerous bloody covered teeth. I was frozen with fear. What the hell was that thing? I honked my horn trying to scare it off, but it didn't budge. It simply sat there. After what feels like a 30-minute staring contest, though it could have been more than 2 minutes, the thing scurried away walking on all fours. I watched it disappear into the thick mass of trees that matched the rest of the forest. Now my eyes shifted back and forth from the forest to the carcass. I rubbed my hands over my eyes before continuing to drive. I still had a few minutes to my house, so I didn't worry about that thing appearing in my yard. I haven't seen it plainly in front of me since. That was about 8 months ago, but I constantly feel as if I'm being watched or followed. I did my own research. Apparently, this thing is called the crawler. It's taken a liking to me, which scares me. I'm constantly seeing it from a distance out of the corner of my eyes. Sometimes I see it for seconds at a time before it disappears into the woods again. I know it watches me when I sleep. I had set up a camera watching for the unfortunate day when I'd wake up and see it. That'll be the day when it finally strikes. So, in this next account, a professional woman repeatedly sensed, smelled, and heard a towering figure lurking near her home in New Hampshire. Security cameras glitched, offerings vanished, and her marine friends listened to the unearthly sounds. Was it Bigfoot or something darker? So she writes, I just came across your website while I was doing research for a new book that I'm planning on writing. However, what I read on this website that brought me to this email perfectly describes a creature I encountered in my backyard at my last residence in Campton, New Hampshire, which happened last spring. However, I had moved since then and just settled in just 2 miles down the road, and I'm now experiencing the eerie feelings and other strange occurrences. I had then yet haven't physically seen it yet, but it has an odor really nasty too. Please read this through. It's not for attention whatsoever, nor a wild imagination going wild. Just a little humor, but in all reality, this is a valid account that you or someone you know just might really be interested in if you're as serious about the unknown creatures. Now, recounts of that night, it was around midnight, and I had just got home from visiting family. And I was talking with a friend to let them know I was okay when I saw something significant and wasn't sure what it was. However, I ran into my house because I had this sick feeling among other emotions that I can't really describe. My friend, who's a Marine, was concerned, so he stayed on the phone with me trying to calm my panic down. However, it only escalated. It seemed to be outside my door, and when I went into another room, it was outside my window there too, as if it were stalking me. This went on for a few hours. I tried to stay as quiet as possible and whispered when I talked to my friend. Whatever it was, it had made an abode on the steep hillside behind my house, deep in the woods. Now, it used to be pine trees and appeared almost teepee like, yet very sturdy when I checked it out the day after the event. And there was a stench that was worse than a wet dog. Whatever this thing was, it was definitely not my imagination. Now, my friend could hear strange noises, grunts, and sharp, high pitched sounds that neither he nor I could explain or ever experienced before. I still don't know what it was. It stays in the shadows. My friend had advised me to leave a peace offering of salt, so I'd taken his advice and put out a bowl of salt filled thoroughly to the brim to try it out after dinner the next day. Thing is, though, the next night I smelled it first, and there was space under the main entrance door at the rear of the house. Because it was an old farmhouse, which in the winter I used to keep it covered to keep out the drafts. I then heard the cracking of wood on the porch. I was so frightened that I had hid in the most middle of the rooms and stayed low and as still as possible. Still, whatever it was, it didn't stay long. In the morning, the whole bowl was gone. Not knocked over, nothing, just gone. No salt, trail, nothing. I checked my security cameras, and all I saw were blurred interruptions as if my system was having technical issues, which never happens. Still, it was a newer camera that I just put in earlier that day. Still, I had been slowly going through 2 years of 24/7 footage from my older yet best IR night vision system. However, I ran out of recording space because I was often on the road at the time, which made it tough to keep up and save essential recordings. Also, I had moved down south of Boston, Massachusetts in June, and the system was in storage. Since I moved just 3 weeks ago to the deeper wooded area by the river from where this incident occurred, I plan to review all the footage and see my abnormalities I find as evidence to share with the scientific community. Now, the only description I can give, despite its remaining in the shadows, is it's at least 8 to 9 feet tall, with a lean build, stands without much hunching, has dark fur all over, and it seems intelligent, and it smells. Since I have had this strange experience or encounter with some of the unknown, I haven't spoken to anyone about it except my friend who thinks it's a Bigfoot, out of fear of ridicule and similar reactions. I don't have the psychological issues, yet I have talked to a psychiatrist and a psychologist who have all said I am of sound mind and have all sorts of testing, along with PET scans to rule out any illness. Yet, I swear I'm going crazy, but the specialists all say that it's normal. I do believe in the unknown because, as you know, much of it is still out there, either hiding or just hasn't been truly documented. Also, I help others when they claim that they're being haunted, to ensure that they're not afraid to live wherever they are and feel secure in their homes. But that's another talk if you ever wish to discuss it further. Now, back to the unknown creature, or it. Since I moved to my new place, I have been here for several weeks, but in the past few days, I have noticed that I'm being stalked through the woods. My family had come up for the holiday weekend, and they had seen the sickening stench, which I had dismissed as a mouse that could have passed, and they took they took it as a logical answer, but the smell would linger and be constant if it were true, and not at night when it kept coming back. So whatever it is, it seems to have taken a liking to me and knows I'm back again, which leads me to believe that it has an excellent sense of smell, travels a lot, or both. I don't really know. However, if you wish to investigate, please feel free to contact me at any time. Wherever this is, it's now out there again, watching closely, making me the perfect bait for any investigation. I really do wish that somehow someone who knows how to document well could contact me, that it could be adequately documented and presented to the communities, showing that the truth of unknowns really does exist in our lifetime. Thank you so much. You already have my return email, so please don't hesitate to contact me if you would like to investigate or know someone who would. Also, please don't take this as false. It's really true, and I mentioned everything as accurately as possible. I don't have the proper gear or manpower to document, so I'm sharing my story because it really needs attention from someone like you or others who you know in the scientific community. I only know and have colleagues in space engineering or weather, etc., none of whom are really into cryptozoology or this type of unknown creature. Please give this some serious thought when contacting me, and I beg you not to discard this possibly best credible finding as rubbish. Also, should you choose to investigate this, please, I don't want to be ridiculed, but I will be the best at helping to document and lure this thing out with your help. Thank you again for taking the time to read this. The truth is really here, sincerely. And she gives her name. Now, I did contact the witness, and I found her to be pretty credible and well-educated and professional. The witness had lived both currently and previously near the White Mountain National Forest, which has a well-documented history of unusual activity, including a lot of Bigfoot activity. We're in the process of contacting a reliable investigator in the area, so hopefully we can get somebody to go out there. I did have one investigator consider it. They haven't got back to me, but we'll see. And this is a fairly recent encounter, so we'll see what'll come up. Now, this next account, exploring an abandoned furniture factory near St. John's River, and that's in Florida. 3 friends are stalked by something pale and fast. From growled words to rocks hurled from rooftops, the presence followed them long into the night. So the witness states, in 2018, my boyfriend at the time, a friend, and I were walking near St. John's River in our town in Florida. There isn't much to do in our city unless you're into fishing. It was getting late, around 10 p.m., when we decided to check out an abandoned furniture factory a few streets over. Now, when we arrived, we tried the front doors to see if they were unlocked, but of course they were locked. We then walked around to the side where the factory had been partially demolished a few years ago. A low wall was still standing, creating a fence-like barrier that we would have to climb over. I leaned over the wall to see if we could walk through, but there was way too much rubble and weeds in the way. We ultimately decided to leave and head back to our cars. I was halfway to the sidewalk when I heard a deep growling "hey" coming from the weed-filled area. I stopped and looked back, feeling my face drain of color. I saw some of the weeds moving, and that's when I ran, leaving my boyfriend and another friend behind. We sprinted almost 2 blocks before stopping to catch our breath and walk through the neighborhoods back to our cars. The entire way we could hear something climbing across the roofs, rocks being thrown at us from the top of trees, and we even saw a pale figure dart past us. A strong feeling of dread hung over me the whole time. Now, when we finally reached our cars, we spent a few minutes calming down before driving away. It was quiet for a moment until we heard the creature climb on the roof of a converted bank. It paced back and forth just out of the reach of the light, throwing things at us and into the tree multiple times. It was terrifying to be followed like that in an area where I used to feel so safe. Now, once I got home, I did some research. The growl, the paleness, and the speed at which it ran matched descriptions of the crawler encounters. I think it only followed us and threw things because we were 3 together, staying close. Hopefully, I won't re-encounter it, at least not alone. Now, this next account, a 12-year-old in 1982 reportedly saw a denim-clad man with black, lifeless eyes leaning into doorways. The strange figure appeared for years, almost as though it had attached itself to him. So the witness writes, it was 1982. I was 12 years old and had vivid memories of the police, Eddie Money, John Mellencamp on the radio, which oddly enough froze my memory at that time, of the time. My parents were apartment managers. It was moving day into our new manager's quarters in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was almost a double-sized apartment, an apartment attached to the office. My younger sister, my brother, and I were given what amounted to half of the apartment as our own. While the adults were moving everything from the truck into the house, I sat alone in a large room under a window. It was the early part of the day, around 9 a.m. I was staring into and messing with the funky shag carpet when I saw someone lean into the doorway. So I could make out the upper torso area, and then it leaned back out. I glanced over quickly, assuming it was one of the adults peeking in to check on me. I really didn't think anything of it. A few seconds later, I saw the figure lean in again. I turned my head quickly into the doorway, and again, nothing. The second time felt a little different, almost as if it was trying not to be seen. Something in my young mind told me to stare at the carpet and try to focus, but not on my peripheral vision. So I stared down at the floor, and sure enough, this thing leaned back into the doorway. Now, the corner of my eye, I could make out what looked like a man in his late 30s wearing a denim jacket with black scruffy hair and weird black eyes. The whole thing had a strange dark look, and my mind may have filled in some of the details at the moment, but I have this memory seared into my brain. It freaked me out. What the hell was that? I sat there and side watched this thing for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only just a couple of seconds. Now, over the next several years, I had similar experiences. It was almost like this thing followed me, and I expected to see him from time to time. But after a while, I didn't think about it, and then I never saw it again. Now, let me say, please do me a quick favor and tap the like button as more experiencers, so more experiencers can find us. Please subscribe and consider using the super chat or super thanks by tapping the $ located below the chat box. You can also use the PayPal or Buy Me a Coffee links in the description. Now, at the end, I'll have a question and answer session. Type your questions in all caps. So, this next account. Strange sounds, ominous drumming, and a shadow with pitch black eyes surrounded a young angler near a church canal. The deeper he explored, the more he felt the land itself was marked by something sinister. So he writes, "Hi, I just turned 18 and I'm from South Louisiana. I had a disturbing encounter yesterday and it really spooked me. I want to mention that I never believed in any of this stuff until today. So after work, I decided to go fishing for the remainder of the daylight, and I went to a canal near my house that's located by a church. Now, on my side, there's a levee that leads into a nature preserve and a highway, while on the other side of the canal, there are woods with a singular tree that had a warning sign. I have fished at this spot many times with friends, but today I was alone. Every time we visited, we would hear a large animal running around in the woods. We thought it might be a hog, but it never showed itself. Today, as soon as I stepped out of the car, I got an eerie feeling, but brushed it off. I hopped over the gate and walked down the canal with my fishing poles. When I arrived, something seemed normal, just a few armadillos, birds, and other animals. So I started fishing. Now, about 15 minutes into fishing, I started to feel as if I were being watched. It was an unsettling feeling, almost as if something was watching me from all directions, which made me uneasy. Then, as expected, I heard the sound of that large animal running through the woods again. In the distance, I also listened to an ominous bark, which made me think it might have been a dog. Now, as I walked along the bank, casting my line, the feeling of being followed intensified. I kept looking behind me, alongside of me, in front of me, and this continued for about 10 minutes. At a certain point along the canal, I noticed strange marks in the trail, overgrown grass beside the bank. Then I heard it. Boom, boom, boom. It was the distant sound of a hollow drum being hit 3 times. And shortly after, the animal began acting erratically and running around. I became even more frightened and decided to fish my way back to where I had left my bag. That's when I heard it again. Boom, boom. The drum was hit twice, and I sensed the creature running in front of me. I froze. There was a small opening in the trees, and I saw the branches shake as something moved through the opening and looked at me. I stood there, frozen with fear. I couldn't see its face, just a shadow with an eye staring directly at me, a black eye, too dark, like a portal to hell. I started to back away as the creature turned away from me, and then I heard a singular drum sound. Boom! It became eerily quiet. Even the birds stopped chirping. Terrified, I ran as fast as I could without looking back. I reached my car and drove home. I should also mention that I've grown up around here, and there are trails in the patch of woods next to the church that have bloody dresses nailed to the trees, upside down crosses carved into them, and baby doll heads with their eyes cut out. I need answers. Please tell me what you think it could be. Until today, I didn't believe in any of this. I don't smoke, vape, drink, or do anything like it. I know I'm not crazy. What I saw wasn't human and certainly wasn't an animal. So I don't know what he ran into. So this next account, while black powder hunting, a man realized the bipedal creature was mirroring every step in the dark woods. Hours of circling his tree stand ended up with only with daybreak and the memory of glowing green eyes yards away. Real truth. Thank you for your donation. Much appreciated. I was black in the witness states. I was black powder hunting alone in a very rural area of Grayson County, Kentucky, far off the parkway. It was an off-grid property surrounded by old-growth timbers for miles, with only a few seasonal hunting cabins that remained dormant most of the year. Now, I've deer hunted this property all my life, and I've never had any reason to fear walking to my deer stand in the dark. However, the 2008 season changed my life forever. I usually rode my four-wheeler in and parked about 250 yards from my favorite spot, walking the rest of the way to avoid spooking any game. As I turned off my four-wheeler and put on my backpack, I heard a tremendous limb snap, which I assume was a deer or some animal moving about 20 yards away. Initially, I didn't think much of it and figured I had spooked an animal. I gathered my gun and hunting gear, then began walking down the two-track trail without my flashlight, as the moonlight provided enough illumination. I was familiar with the trail, and it led to a 15-acre hayfield surrounded by old-growth timber. Now, as I walked in the dark, I began to realize something was paralleling my every step just inside the woods. I would walk and stop, and it would do the same. And as I continued down the dark trail, the footsteps began to get closer. I wasn't entirely sure, but it sounded like they were bipedal. By the time I realized I was in a serious situation, it was too late to return to my four-wheeler safely. I quickened my pace and aimed for the field, with my stalker keeping pace with me. When I reached the edge of the field, I headed towards my stand, which was about 75 yards away. When I was within 10 yards of the stand, I heard another large limb snap very close on my left. I stopped, turned on my flashlight, and shone it in that direction. I saw two glowing green eyes about 10 inches apart. Instinctively, I raised my hands in the air and shouted, "Get out of here!" I stomped my foot at it, unsure of what I was seeing. The creature blinked its eyes once, but didn't move. I couldn't make out any details, but it appeared to be crouched down since the eyes were so low to the ground. Whatever it was, it didn't run away like most non-predatory animals would. I realized that my best course of action was to take the higher ground and get into my stand as quickly as possible. The creature was no more than 8 steps away, and if I shot at it in the dark, the muzzle flash would blind me, and it might attack if I missed. With only one shot available, I knew it'd be in trouble if it did attack. I climbed up my ladder to my stand quickly like a squirrel. I watched, listened, and waited for what felt like an eternity until dawn. That thing circled me in the stand, just out of the reach of my flashlight, for over an hour. I'm not ashamed to admit that I was scared, but I remained calm, knowing the only way it could reach me was by climbing the ladder. I found some comfort in that, even though it seemed uncertain about how to use it. So at one point, I heard what sounded like a small rock bouncing off the lower end of the metal ladder. I waited, gun at ready to do whatever it is to take, or to keep me alive. I could see a shadow moving, but in the dark, it was hard to tell if my eyes were playing tricks on me. Still, I sensed a real threat lurking in the dark field surrounding my deer stand. This creature had been stalking me until just seconds before daybreak. Eventually, I heard its footsteps fade back into the woods from where it had followed me. I continued to wait, watching and listening intently until full daylight illuminated the area. Then I cautiously descended the ladder, remaining on high alert. As I walked back to my four-wheeler, I knew this creature wasn't gone. It was likely hiding in the forest, watching my every move. I moved quickly across the field, pausing to listen before heading back to the two-track path surrounded by trees. I was aware that it could be a perfect ambush spot. Thanks, Mortal Clan, for your donation. With close quarters limiting my ability to evade or fight off an attack, I unsnapped my hunting knife sheath, gripped my black powder rifle firmly, and prepared myself for a life-or-death battle. Now, as I rounded the corner where my four-wheeler was parked, I saw my escape and wasted no time hopping on the machine. As I turned the key to start it, I heard another branch snap forcibly behind me. The bike roared to life, and I quickly applied the throttle, looking through the gears as fast, going through the gears as fast as I could, never looking back. Honestly, I didn't want to know what it was, and I was just relieved to escape such a close call. Once I got back to my cabin, I packed up and got out of there. Thanks again, Mortal Clown. So, next account, a worker stranded on a mountain road heard heavy footfalls pacing him through the dark. Though nothing was seen, the overwhelming fear suggested something more than an elk or bear prowled those woods. So, the witness states, I worked at Keystone Resort in Colorado for a few years. Now, during the summer, we would set up for conferences, weddings, and other events. Several weddings were held at one of the mountaintop buildings, which served as a high-end dining area in the winter and hosted functions in the summer. Imagine beautiful wooden buildings atop a mountain, complete with massive stone fireplaces and magnificent vistas from expansive wooden decks. They were lovely venues for weddings if you could afford it. However, to reach these places, you had to drive along dirt roads that wound through valleys and then up switchback roads along the mountain until you reached the destination. It was approximately an 8-mile trek from winding mountain roads. So one night, I had a quick turnaround from a conference to a wedding the following afternoon. This required moving a lot of tables and chairs down the mountain and bringing up the different ones for the wedding. A crew would break down the previous setup and load a truck, which would then be driven down to another building to unload and reload the equipment before being driven back up the mountain. I was the one driving the truck. As I made the long, twisty 8-mile drive back up the mountain with my last load of equipment, my truck coughed a few times and then shut off. When I tried to restart it, I got nothing. Now, at that point, I was frustrated. I had no radio and would have to walk to the mountainside building to send a radio message for another truck. I stepped out and began walking. After about 100 yards, I heard something in the woods, a heavy footfall and some brush snapping. I froze. The darkness was nearly absolute, and the road had no lighting, just the faint glow from the quarter moon. A familiar shiver shot from my lower back to the top of my head. I strained to hear anything, but fell silent again. I resumed walking softly, my eyes darting back and forth, trying to catch any slight movement. I moved another 25 yards, and the rustling in the woods started up again, seemingly shadowing me from uphill and behind. I felt tingling all over my body, and my eyes were wide in fear, and my breath came in quick gasps. I stopped to scan for any movement. Once more, the sound ceased. My rational mind whispered, "Don't worry, it's just a deer or an elk, or maybe a bear." But what if it's something else? My subconscious screamed, "Bigfoot." I tried to maintain my composure, but calmness had left me. I began walking faster, trying to assess any sound from behind me. It didn't take long for the footfalls and the brush movement to start up again, which prompted me to break into a full run, desperate to reach the building in safety before the unknown attacked me. For about 15 to 20 seconds, I heard crashing in the underbrush behind me. After that, all I could hear was the pounding of my blood in my ears and the heavy thuds of my feet hitting the ground. I have no idea how fast I ran that last mile and a half to the building, but I was sure that something was going to grab me from the darkness in any moment. I made it to the safety of the building and dashed inside. Everyone there took one look at me, then sat me down and offered me a strong drink from the bar. I must have looked like a ghost. My friends gave me a hard time for being scared, but none of them dared to step outside to investigate my story. Instead, they just radioed for another truck to retrieve the equipment from the broken down vehicle and deliver it the rest of the way. I finished my shift and ended up getting cross-eyed drunk that morning and the next day. I had never been so scared of the woods in my life. Just to be clear, I'm not an outdoorsy type. I don't hunt or camp. I still have no idea what was in those woods that night. My rational side said it was just a big animal, but my paranoia tells me it was something else. I never saw anything. I just heard noises. And to this day, I still think it was probably just an elk or a bear. But good luck convincing me yourself of what that was when you're all alone in the pitch black woods. So this next account, deep in the forest, a ranger and friends encountered a bizarre gray-skinned humanoid with red eyes and no mouth. Its chilling scream echoed across the clearing, and for years afterwards, he felt stalked by its presence. Now, this is a local one, so if there's people who are from my area of the woods, you'll know the area. Anyway, in 1999, I was working at Caledonia State Park in south central Pennsylvania and became familiar with its back areas, places most tourists never see. Approximately 1 mile from the park, along a long dirt road, there was a large clearing in the woods, cleared for power lines and gas wells. Once you reached that spot, you had to walk down a long hill until you came to an old abandoned trail. If you followed this trail, it would lead you deep into the forest. One day I followed it and discovered an old dilapidated cabin, not listed in the park cabin records, that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Even though it was daylight, I felt a creepy sensation like I shouldn't be there, as if something was watching my every move. A few weeks later, while I was off duty, 2 friends and I were just out driving around enjoying the summer night. Since I knew all the back roads, I gave them a bit of a tour. Note, none of these roads were off limits, so I wasn't breaking any rules. Other than that mysterious cabin, the park had no real secrets. Around 11 p.m., I came to that familiar clearing and mentioned the old cabin. Feeling brave, I convinced them to let me show it to them. So I grabbed my flashlight and we headed down the hill onto the path that led to the cabin. I took the lead, and we had walked halfway when my light suddenly flashed on something to the right side of the path. Immediately, I stopped and said, "Did you just see that?" They responded, "See what?" I panned the light back to the right side of the road and said, "That." Standing by the tree was a creature that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. It had grayish olive colored skin and was very thin in its extremities. Its calf and forearm muscles were very large, as was its chest. The face was the strangest part. It had the typical alien gray head shape, but no mouth. Its nose was long and thin, but not longer than its chin. The eyes glowed red in the light, but were relatively small, smaller than any human eye. I hate to reference this for fear of questioning my sanity, but my best description is that it resembled the goons from the Popeye cartoons. It leaned oddly against the tree like someone relaxing on an armchair, reminiscent of how the Fonz would lean against the jukebox in Happy Days, except without crossed legs. Immediately, everyone wanted to leave, but as we turned, my flashlight went out. My friends urged me to stop messing with them, but I insisted I wasn't joking and told them to keep moving. I was now at the back of the group. I frantically pounded on my flashlight, trying to get it to work again. As soon as it switched back on, I turned it around, shining in behind us. The creature had moved closer and was now on the left side of the path. We hurried to the clearing, and once we reached the main dirt road at the top of the hill, things escalated. From the woods we had just exited came a high-pitched, blood-curdling screech, which was soon answered by similar sounds from the other side of the clearing. Now, I had spent my life in the woods, and with a degree of wildlife management from Penn State, I had heard many animal noises, but I had never encountered that sound before. I knew it wasn't an owl, bobcat, bear, bird, or porcupine. None of those made those types of sounds. Months passed without incident, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched to the point where I felt stalked. Now, one night, as I went to retrieve something from my truck, I glanced into the woods and saw reddish glowing eyes staring back at me from the shadows. I raced into the house and grabbed the largest knife I could find. I'm not a gun guy. My dad asked me what I was doing. I explained that I was tired of feeling stalked and was going to confront this thing. He insisted on coming with me, though I knew he didn't honestly believe my encounter. So when we stepped outside, he casually asked, "Okay, where did you see this thing?" I pointed to the spot, and as he directed his flashlight there, he was shocked to see it. As soon as the light hit it, the creature tore off deep into the woods. Now, my dad, an ex Marine who served proudly in Vietnam, told me in a terrified voice to get back into the house. Now, to this day, telling this encounter still creeps me out. My hands shake even as I type it out. I'm now in my 30s, married with kids, living not far from the state park. Yet, even now, when I go outside at night, I still feel watched. When I get a powerful feeling, my wife won't let me leave the house without her by my side. Now, as a side note, for the first 5 years of our relationship, she too would catch glimpses of this creature, but mostly when it was lurking in the shadows. So, folks, that was the last account. If you have questions, please use all caps in the chat, and I'll see what I can do. And for you folks that are familiar with Caledonia and Micho State Forest, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on around there. It's just west of Gettysburg. It's, I guess, about 10, 12 miles west of Gettysburg, but it's an area we had done a lot of research over the years. And it's well known for Bigfoot and cryptid canine activity. So I don't know what he saw. You know, when he said the goons, I was thinking when I was a kid, I used to watch those cartoons, and those goons just scared the hell out of me. So I know what he was talking about. Dagnammit. One characteristic of a dog man is popping sounds as it shifts into an upright position to manipulate his joints to ambulate bipedality. I guess I have heard that, but I don't know if that's actually true or not, but I guess it is possible. They were intense occurrences. Yeah, there was some pretty good ones in there. Some of them was fairly new too. So I have gotten some weird accounts in the past several weeks. Any questions, folks? Hurry up. We got your chance now. Well, in the meantime, I just wanted to let you know that this Wednesday will be this at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific time. We're going to have the Ask Lon presentation, and I am going to give away 2 books. One book I have talked about a lot. That's Wendigo Lore. That's with that was written by Chad Lewis and Kevin Lee Nelson. It's probably the best book I've ever read on the Wendigo. It's an excellent book. And the other book is going to be Web of Life and Cosmos, Human and Bigfoot Star Ancestor. And that was written by Chrisana Duran. Now, I don't know if you remember when she was on the show about 5 or 6 years ago. She was a friend of Ray Keller, Cosmic Ray. Unfortunately, she passed away from COVID about 3 years ago. And her book's pretty hard to get a hold of. So you might enjoy this. So you become a member, you can get in on that. Barbara Mora. Are there more encounters lately? If so, in what part of the U.S.? I can't really say there are more encounters. It could be more people coming forward. I have put a report link on the website, the new website, so people can contact me, and people have been using it. So I got a few coming in. Mike Preen, Lloyd Pye. My God, I haven't talked about Lloyd in a long time. Lloyd and I used to talk a lot. I really liked that man. I thought he was great. Unfortunately, he passed away from cancer about 10 years ago, I'd say now. But if anybody knows anything about the Star Child and that investigation and what he had talked about in reference to the Star Child, it was interesting. You may want to look it up on the online. There's another group who has taken over the investigation. Magnus, in terms of time slips, has there been any more interesting from Gettysburg? Every once in a while, I'll get a time slip story coming out of Gettysburg. I haven't had any recently, um, but there are a few that come out of there that aren't related to the battle itself. It's just the atmosphere at Gettysburg is conducive to a lot of weird stuff. So, but I haven't gotten any lately. I'll see what I can find though. Anything else, folks? Yeah, I just read that one. That's the one from Magnus. Okay. Well, anyway, if you had an encounter sighting, feel free to email me at lonstrickler@famsandmonsters.com with the date, location, your detailed observation of the experience. Tonight, please like and subscribe. Share this with anyone who drives the lonely roads and watches the sky at night. Maybe they can benefit from contacting me. Again, the newsletter sign up is at famsmonsters.com. If you go to the homepage, the link is there to sign up. I am going to attempt to get the newsletter out, the first newsletter out this weekend. Me and the developer just got everything lined up last night. So hopefully that'll work. But I plan on doing maybe a bi-weekly newsletter. I see another question. First contact specialist trainee. Hello, Lon. What do you think about Atlas 31 asteroid changing physics as we know it? It's a true extraterrestrial object that came from deep space. Stay tuned, folks. Yeah, I did an article about that this week. I don't know what this thing is, but it is making some pretty significant moves. And it's also expelling a lot of chemicals that you just don't see. I think they even discovered that there possible cyanide coming off of it. I know that it's composed of frozen carbon dioxide for the most part. That's what they can determine. But it'll be interesting to see what maneuvers it has or what it does the next several months. But I don't know. It is an enigma. It's something that they've never seen before, though. I mean, maybe they have, but it's just not documented. Anything else, folks? Well, again, thanks for coming in. And until next time, and look, if you try to make it Wednesday night, the membership's only $2.99. We're trying to get more and more perks for folks and giveaways and a lot of other stuff. So we'll see you Wednesday night for that. But then again, stay safe, stay curious, and next Friday night we'll talk to you. And have a good night. Have a great weekend as well. Talk to you later. Bye bye.